Kathy.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is the KC Cafe Radio Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. We have an interesting topic, I think.
Yes.
Most people will find interesting, maybe.
Conceptual.
It's conceptual, meaning in which we're going to be talking about concept albums.
Yeah.
And there's literally thousands of concept albums out there.
There's Contact out there, too.
Maybe, we don't know.
Yeah. Pretty soon.
But I think we both picked 10 concept albums that are fairly unique. I tried to pick ones that people don't necessarily know or think of as concept albums.
Yeah. Well, mine, actually, I don't even know if anybody's heard some of these albums that I picked.
I think especially the first one we're going to talk about. So
yes.
The first one we're going to talk about is one that we're kind of bonded by.
Yes.
I think your husband was like a big Godley and Creme
fan,
right?
He still is, yeah. Well, he loved 10cc, and two of the guys that made this album, Godley and Creme, that's their last names, by the way, were in 10cc. And so they were kind of the quirky, weird part of 10cc.
Yeah, they wrote the weird songs.
Yeah.
10cc did. I don't know if you're very familiar with 10cc, but they're the ones who did the things you do for love and
I'm Not in Love.
I'm Not in Love.
Yeah,
so really
great
two
song.
Classic songs from the 70s.
Very, very commercial.
Right.
This work, however, was not commercial.
Which was probably its downfall.
Yeah.
It was apparently, I was reading, I knew nothing about this album other than the fact that I loved it.
Right.
Hopefully I didn't say any or touch that. Anyway. But other than the fact that I loved it. Yeah. Don't touch me there.
Bad touch. Bad touch.
But yeah, it was considered a disaster by the critics. And even Godley and Creme were pretty upset about the fact that it didn't do well. But they said the reason why it really didn't do well at the time it was released in 1977 is because that was the onslaught of punk rock coming about.
Well,
and so
yeah, they were at the tail end.
This album is really not... This is the furthest thing you can get from punk.
Yeah.
It's very thoughtful.
There's a lot of instrumental in it.
A lot of instrumental in it, a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue in this album.
It's like a rock opera almost.
The name of the album is called Consequences, by the way. We're talking about Godley and Creme's Consequences. It was released in 1977, October of 1977.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that they were doing with this album is they had created this new gizmo. I think it's called
the Gizmo.
The Gizmo.
Yeah.
And all the different kinds of weird sounds you could make with a guitar.
It's an electric guitar that was programmed to make the effects of orchestral instruments.
Right.
So it's a really interesting.
Interesting.
Not the one with the problem talking this week.
I don't know. I think I'm really mellow tonight, and that's why I'm not. I'm not.
You're much more mellow than
I'm much more mellow than you.
So anyway,
I'm mellow yellow. I have my yellow shirt on. That's why.
I call her mellow yellow.
That's right.
But anyway, so he used the gizmo, which was, in punk rock was all orchestrated just playing heavy
guitar. Just raw, heavy
music. And this is not raw at all.
Yeah, it's not. It's very orchestrated. It's very mastered. In fact, if you want to listen, you can't find this album on any music service.
It's not on Amazon. It's not on Spotify.
There are a couple of the songs from this album on Spotify that we will add to our playlist. Mm-hmm. However, if you want to hear the full mastered album,
it's a 3-album set. Too,
yes. And
with a complete booklet and all that kind of stuff.
It has beautiful graphic art, beautiful renditions of what's happening in the music behind the album. But anyway, you can watch it on YouTube, and I will link that the person that graciously added that to YouTube so that you can listen to the whole album.
My husband recorded it off of your album. Yeah. Like many years ago, and so we have a copy of it that we've recorded on the
we have the original CD. Album.
Yeah, we have a CD
vinyl.
Copy
we have the original vinyl.
So it's a fun one to listen to, and basically the story, the narrator in it is Peter Cook, who is well known from being a comedian in Great Britain.
Yes.
I think he worked with Dudley Moore as a comedy team.
Yeah.
And then Sarah Vaughan, the great Sarah Vaughan. Does the female vocal work in it.
Oh, Lulu? She's Lulu?
Yeah. Beautiful voice.
And it's about nature taking revenge on mankind. And so And in the middle of all this nature taking revenge on mankind is this couple who are getting divorced,
Right.
and their attorneys arguing over their possessions, and in fact going to the extent of counting the teeth in the mouth of Lulu. And like, how many teeth do you have? Have you claimed those? And she goes, I don't know how many teeth I have.
The absurdity of divorce.
It's about the absurdity of divorce and the absurdity of man
trying to conquer nature.
Nature, yeah. Nature always wins.
My favorite line from the album is, "It's not a good omen when goldfish commit suicide."
Yeah, that is the best. And number 17 is the
number that will save the world.
Yeah, that will save the world. And the mysterious hole that's in the attic of his apartment.
Well, there's a composer that lives on the first floor, and then the solicitor's office is on the attic.
Right.
And so, yeah, the hole is in the floor
of the attic, looking down into the musician's apartment.
Right.
And every time they say hole, there's like, oh!
It's a really quite fun album.
It is. It's great.
Check it out on YouTube. Kathy will put a link up. I put down a couple of my favorite tracks from it. 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
is a great
love
song.
that song. Love it.
And then another one is called Lost Weekend.
Yep.
And then Cool, Cool, Cool is another good
one. Cool, Cool, Cool. And then another one is When Things Go Wrong. They really go wrong.
Yeah.
That's kind of been a theme in my life sometimes.
And if you're a Godley and Creme fan, they redid Cry. They did the song Cry. I don't know if you remember that song, but it was a brilliant video that they did. The song called Cry. And they use like the extended version of Cry has little snippets from some of these songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
check it out. Consequences. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it, obviously, on YouTube, the whole album. 3-album set. Mm-hmm. And if you can find it on vinyl, go for it.
Yeah, if you find it on vinyl, you found
with the booklet and everything. It's great.
Because I've been looking for it for years and I haven't found it. So
yeah, well, it's at my house. That's why.
I'll steal that one too.
With David Bowie. Yes, that and David Bowie. So I'll go ahead and talk about my next album, which is kind of a mockery of the concept album. It was by Jethro Tull, and it's called Thick as a Brick. And the term thick as a brick means it's a term for somebody who's stupid. And so was Jethro Tull just saying we're all stupid for wanting a concept album?
Probably.
I don't know. But basically he made up this whole story about a kid, an 8-year-old, who wrote a poem and won this poem contest, and then Ian Anderson turned the poem into a 2-sided album, side 1, and actually it's kind of disjointed when you listen. This particular album is on Apple Music and Spotify, I believe, but in the original album vinyl, you had to listen to side 1 and then you'd stop and then listen to side 2. Mm-hmm. But when you hear it online, you hear the whole thing, and it kind of takes away the mystique of the whole thing. But it's one continuous song, Thick as a Brick, and it has different breaks in the music where it becomes fast or slow, and you can kind of feel it segueing into different pieces. There's like 8 different songs within the big song of Thick as a Brick. And the kid's name was Gerald Bostick. That is what the little 8-year-old boy. I'm sorry, our light just went out because I lost all my juice. Oh well.
We lost our juice.
Yeah, we lost our juice. But anyway, a lot of people didn't get the joke. He even made this fake newspaper that he wrapped the album in. It was making fun of like the local newspapers in that time period. And this album came out in 1972. Ian Anderson was like very offended that people thought his album Alqualon was a concept album, and he's like, I'll show you a concept album. Hold my beer.
Hold my ale.
Yeah, hold my beer. But really, the only song to mention on that is Thick as a Brick, which it's just one continuous song throughout the whole album.
Okay. My concept album is one that's considered a classic, and it's one that's considered one of the greatest albums of all time now. In fact, when I was looking at a Rolling Stones list of greatest albums of all time, I think this was number one.
Oh.
And it's Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was released in May of 1971, and it was recorded from June to September of 1970, and then again from March to May of 71.
Cool.
And they recorded this in Detroit, and it was released on the Tamala label. It was the 11th album by Marvin Gaye.
Oh, wow.
It was the first album he did that he was credited as producer on as well.
Wow.
And he basically wrote the album with the guy from the Four Tops. I'm trying to remember his name. Obie Benson.
And this came out what year?
71.
Oh, okay, so that was right after the race riots and
Right, and so
and,
the
all that
title
stuff.
track, "What's Going On," was actually written by Obie Benson of the Four Tops. And he wrote the song after witnessing police brutality on anti-war protesters,
Oh, wow.
which later became known as Bloody Thursday.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, but so he offered the song to Marvin Gaye, and Gaye said, "No, you guys should do the song." And he said, "No, how about I work on this album with you?" And so they worked on the album together and recorded the album, and it's an amazing album, beautiful songs, great powerful songs about Save the Children, What's Going On. Mercy, Mercy Me is about ecology, probably the first ecology songs ever done. Another beautiful song called God is Love. It was an immediate commercial success, and it's about hatred and suffering and injustice, and it also explores drugs and abuse and poverty during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I write down about it? And technically it's called a song cycle because each song kind of segues into the next. So
Oh, okay. So it actually makes it feel like it's one continuous piece of music.
it makes it feel like they all belong together, all the songs belong together.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it's an amazing album, and it's one of the greatest albums of all time. If you haven't listened to it, then go out and listen to it. It's, like I said, it's a great, great album.
Cool.
And Marvin Gaye was going through a lot of personal struggles during that time. His very good friend, who he recorded with, Tammy Terrell, was dying of brain cancer at the time.
Oh, really?
And so he was he was in turmoil himself personally, dealing with her dying, and
She did some of his best hits.
Yeah.
Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and what was the other one they did? I can't remember.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, so he was going through a lot himself personally during
Yeah.
that time, especially with drugs and that as well. And his brother was the person that was coming home from Vietnam.
Oh.
And he kind of wrote a lot of the songs in reference to.
There was so much struggle in that too, just coming home.
Right.
If you came home, you were kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Okay, talking about messed up, that's a good segue into my next one, which is by Alice Cooper. It's called Welcome to My Nightmare, and this is kind of the album that kind of sparked his whole rock opera, ghoulish stage show that he put together, and this was released in 1975. Alice had created a whole new band at that time, because previous to this album, it was a totally different feel and vibe to the Alice Cooper that we knew before this. And it was the first solo album with this band. And so the songs form a journey through the nightmares of this little young man called Stephen. And Alice Cooper is sort of the game master of all the nightmares in this album. Some of my favorite songs, actually one of my favorite Alice Cooper songs is on this album, and it's called Only Women Bleed. It's a great song. Then the song Stephen, obviously. Welcome to My Nightmare. I know most people have heard that, and they played a lot during Halloween. And then Department of Youth is kind of funny. It's the great thing about Alice Cooper, he is an incredibly intelligent person.
Yeah.
And he uses snark. He uses a lot of snark and sarcasm
and
wit in his songs. Yeah. And he a lot of people don't give him the credit that he deserves. Also, he's an avid golfer, if you don't know that. He does like to play golf. My 80-year-old mother-in-law, she goes, "Oh, I love Alice Cooper." I'm like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, I watch him play golf all the time on TV." I'm like, "Really? Okay." That's when I found out that Alice Cooper plays golf. That's kind of cool.
So my next one is Skylarking by XTC. XTC is one of my favorite bands from the late 70s, or the 80s, late 70s, 80s. Skylarking was their ninth studio album. It was produced by the great Todd Rundgren.
Oh yeah. He
did
a lot of albums.
I've got actually 2 on the list here by Todd Rundgren. It was recorded in his Utopia studios in New York.
Oh, okay.
And then they also went to San Francisco and recorded the drum tracks with Prairie Prince of the Tubes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love the Tubes.
Yeah. So it was recorded in April through June of 1986. It's a concept album about the cycle of a day, the year, season of life. Takes different milestones in life and talks about them. It's generally regarded as XTC's best album by the critics. I think there's fans out there who will differ with that, but as a XTC fan, I like a lot of their albums. This one's in my top 3, I will say. Go ahead. Do you have something you want to say?
I was just going to say, the song Dear God is not on this, is it?
Yes, that's Dear God, yeah.
Oh, man, that is just epic.
Yeah.
And the video to that's epic, too.
Yeah, it was originally left off the album, and they went back and put it on because they thought it was going to be too offensive to people.
Oh, yeah.
But
anytime you mention God.
If you really listen to the song Dear God, I mean, I have arguments with this about XTC fans on Facebook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've actually argued about this. And but I think it's a song about a person questioning why things happen in the world and why God allows bad things to happen in the world.
Right.
And at the
end of it, want to know that.
Right. And at the end of it, the person, says, with all these bad things happening in the world, I can't believe in you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a sign of a person who wants to believe and questions why God would allow those things to happen.
I mean, a lot of us go through that question. If there really is even a God, yeah.
But in the recording of the album, Andy Partridge, who is sort of the lead singer and lead songwriter of XTC, him and Todd Rundgren did not get along.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they fought constantly during the making of this album. They disagreed on everything.
What did Todd want it more commercialized, and they
just didn't agree on drum sounds and drum effects. There were some tracks where Andy would want a guitar part, and Todd said no, mandolin would sound better here. Oh. So they disagreed just about all through the album, and they ended up really hating each other. And if you hear them talk about one another today, they still hold a big grudge.
Really? Oh my
gosh. They do not like each other. But it was heavily influenced by the fact that XTC's record company were saying, you need to have a hit album. If you don't have a hit album, we'll drop you.
Oh.
And so they gave them a list of producers that they could work with for their next album.
Uh-huh.
And Todd Rundgren was the only name they recognized on the list.
Oh, really?
And so that's why they worked with him.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's considered now one of the 100 greatest albums of all time.
Yeah.
I think mostly
by Rolling Stone, or
I think it was Rolling Stone, but
yeah,
critics generally agree that this is probably one of their best albums, and I agree too. It's one of my favorite XTC albums and one of my favorite albums as well.
I love XTC.
Let me give you a couple of cuts to look out for.
Yeah,
Ballet for a Rainy Day segues into a song called 1,000 Umbrellas, which is really good.
Oh, nice.
Earn Enough for Us is a great pop rock song. It'll just have you jumping around and dancing. Grass is another good one, and it is about grass. It's not about smoking grass. And then,
the grass you walk on, not the grass you smoke.
And then, of course, Dear God is the other standout track.
I remember that playing on VH1 and MTV.
That was a great video, wasn't it?
It was a great video. It was very dark and moody, but it was
about this little kid, and there's people hanging in a tree and stuff.
Yeah.
Or sitting in a tree.
It was like they were in the tree of life.
Right.
They were in the tree. Anyway, it was very symbolic. It was very good.
Yep.
So the next album I'm going to talk about is by Elton John and his songwriting partner Bernie Taupin, who they are still songwriting partners, I believe.
Yeah, they've kind of went back and forth working with each other over the years.
Elton has produced so many albums with Bernie, and this one is called Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, which came out in 1975 at the pinnacle of progressive prog rock, as they called it, or conceptual albums. And it chronicles the rise to fame of Bernie and Elton in their struggle to become famous. And so it has some really great songs, and each song kind of builds on the storyline of the Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. Captain Fantastic, obviously, Elton is fantastic and fabulous. And then the Brown Dirt Cowboy is Bernie Taupin. He grew up on a farm, apparently. And that was an homage to his living situation growing up. Some two songs on here that you will recognize. Someone Saved My Life Tonight. Sugar Bear. I still don't know who's Sugar Bear. Maybe we'll have to figure out who Sugar Bear is. And then Philadelphia Freedom is another really good one on this particular album. But Someone Saved My Life Tonight. That chronicles the night that Elton John had a failed suicide attempt. His girlfriend at the time, he knew at that time, I think, that he was gay.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Yeah, he knew he was gay. And his girlfriend at the time had told him that she was pregnant, but she really wasn't. She was just trying to trap him in marriage, and he was going to go to the altar.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Oh, allegedly. And also, this is for entertainment purposes only. Anyway, but yeah,
only our opinions.
Only our opinions. But supposedly, according to the grapevine out there in the digital media, his girlfriend was trying to trap him into marriage, and he tried to kill himself by putting his head in an oven.
But he left the window open.
He left the window open, and so that's who saved his life, was the window being open. Anyway, but suicide's never a funny topic, just to say that. But anyway, so Someone Saved My Life Tonight in Philadelphia Freedom on that one.
Okay, my next one is another Todd Rundgren produced album. The Tubes is one of my favorite bands well from
love the
Tubes. The 70s and 80s. I saw them in concert.
Yeah.
Did you go with me?
Yeah, at the casino. Argosy Casino.
Argosy Casino in Kansas City.
Kansas City.
It was like maybe 100 people at the show.
It was so funny.
It was ridiculous.
There was an 11-year-old in the front row with her parents.
Oh my God.
And
he did the Quaalude character. It was
Fee Weevil was looking. He looked down at the audience and he goes, I don't know if I can do what I need to do with you sitting there. He was very distraught, I think.
If you don't know, look up Quaalude and Fee Weevil.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Tubes, remote control, produced by Todd Rundgren, came out in January 1st, 1979. And it was a new direction for the band. They kind of got away from their character kind of driven drama.
Were they trying to go more...
like they were doing theatrical kind of concerts before that. But the remote control album is a concept album. It's a look at the television generation with lots of humor and satire and sarcasm.
Yeah.
And the songs are about a person being in love with their television, or a man and woman having an affair during prime time on TV.
Yeah.
It's about a guy who commits suicide with his television. It's a great concept album about the television generation and how we allow television to take over our lives.
Yeah. Tell us what we think.
Yeah, and the one of the great lyrics that I really like in the song is I think it's from oh God, I can't remember which song, but it goes like this. It goes, I wish I had a girl with bouncy hair. We'd ride up in a brand new car or fly a plane somewhere, like probably Jamaica. You can think about this as like in a commercial he's watching.
Yeah.
I'd brush my teeth and shampoo my hair and shave my face, apply the necessary aerosol in the appropriate place, and spend the night together watching television. I really love my television. TV is King is the name of that song.
Yeah, TV is King.
So anyway, TV is King is a great song. I Want It All Now is a really good one, which is about, wanting everything that you see on the television.
I think most
Telecide is about committing suicide with the television.
Oh, yeah.
Primetime is a really pretty brilliant ballad between Fee and Ray Stiles.
Oh, yeah.
Who died, I think, last year.
Oh.
She was a great singer with the Tubes at that time. So just a lot of really great songs. The styles went from like Lounge Lizards sounding kind of songs to new wave and punk and prog rock. Great guitar work on the album by Bill Spooner and Roger Steen. And then their keyboardist, Michael Cotton, was just a wizard with synthesizer sounds and things. So this was between the time they did Remote Control, then they did Xanadu, and then they did Completion Backwards Principle.
Oh,
so that
yeah.
all happened there in the same time period.
Now, the Completion Backwards Principle is where they had She's a Beauty.
No, that's a different album.
Oh, that was a different album? Because I know that's when they really had some commercial success.
They had Sushi Girl.
Xanadu.
Sushi Girl was the hit from, Sushi Girl, and there's another one from Completion Backwards Principle. I looked at that album, I was thinking I would do that as a concept, but it's really more just an idea. The idea is like, it was an album you would play at, like for board meetings and things.
Oh,
You're supposed to so it just had the idea of you would listen to it from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
But it really wasn't a concept album per se, where this one really was. I mean, almost every song is about something to do with television.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
The Remote Control by the Tubes.
Very good album. My next album is by the Flaming Lips. You gotta love a good Flaming Lips album. A lot of their albums are conceptual too, they flow. All the songs kind of flow into each other. Actually, their new album, and I can't remember. It's like American something. It just came out in the last couple years. It's so good. So this one is called Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. And actually, the cover art for the album was composed by the lead singer Wayne Wayne Cohn. So it's like a neo-psychedelica space rock type album, released in 2002. It was captures the delicate duality of life and death, happiness and misery, love and heartbreak, and the internal conflict between man and machine. So it's about the title character, and I think they made an anime or like a short movie based on this album. There's I know there's videos, but Yoshimi is she's kind of like a badass who fights these robots who are trying to take over humanity. And my favorite songs are Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, that's the first one, and then Do You Realize, which had a lot of commercial success. Do You Realize? In fact, every time I sing that song or listen to it, it makes me cry because it talks about do you realize that everybody you know someday will die? And I'm like, oh, you're right. Someday everybody I know is going to die. But it always makes me cry. But it's such a good song.
Is that all you have for that one?
That's all I got for that one.
All right, my next one is El Dorado by the Electric Light Orchestra. It was released in September of 1974, and it got up to number 16 on the U.S. charts. Probably the best known song from that is Can't Get It Out of My Head. And then there's also Boy Blue, which is another good track, and Mr. Kingdom, and El Dorado, the title track. But Jeff Lynne had the idea for this album even before he went into the studio and started to write it. His father was very critical of his music.
Yeah.
And so he kind of used the criticism from his father as his inspiration. So the album is about a guy, like a Walter Mitty kind of character, who goes into his fantasy worlds and his dreams to escape his mundane life. And so a lot of the songs are about what he's dreaming and fantasizing about.
Okay.
So I think you can hear that in the song Can't Get It Out of My Head. I think that makes a lot of sense. This is the first album, ELO at that time were really known for being an orchestral kind of group.
They had a very unique sound.
Yeah. Up to this point, though, they always overdubbed the strings. They didn't have an actual orchestra that played on the album.
Oh.
This album was the first album they hired an orchestra to play on.
Really?
Yeah. And then one of the other members that became really important, I think, in ELO after this was Kelly Crockett, who was their bass player, who was sang some lead stuff, too.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Lynne didn't do all the lead after that. So he joined the band after this recording.
Cool.
And then this album is held very high still to this day. It's considered one of the albums that built prog rock, is what it said in my little...
And they came out in 74?
74, yeah.
Yeah. That's about when all the bands were doing that stuff.
Yeah, and I always loved, I remember finding this album in the record store.
Yeah.
And being intrigued by it just from the album cover, because that's a lot of ways I would buy albums sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just by the album cover. And I love the album cover because it was the Wicked Witch's hands on Dorothy's ruby slippers,
Yeah.
you know. And so it was
It had the electricity coming off the slippers.
Yeah, it was a very intriguing album cover, and so that's one of the reasons I think I bought it originally. But yeah, El Dorado by ELO, or Electric Light Orchestra, for those who don't know what ELO stands for.
Yeah. Oh, I love ELO. Mr. Blue Sky is my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good album, too.
Yeah. Okay, so my next one is funny. I have a little funny story with this one. It's called Haunted by Poe. Poe's actual name is Annie Decatur Danielewski, Polish. Her father was a Polish director, and her brother is a famous author. He wrote this book, House of Leaves, which is kind of like a horror.
I've heard of that book.
Have you heard of that book?
Mm-hmm.
Well, her CD, Haunted, was like a love letter to her father and her brother. A lot of the songs were based on the House of Leaves book, and there's audio clips of her father in this album between the songs. That's her actual father talking, and he has a Polish accent, and it's really cool. You have to listen to this from beginning to end. It has like this. I know, and some of these songs were commercially successful, like Haunted, Wild, Hey Pretty, Control. All those songs were very very good, and I know that you've heard them on the radio. And in the book that this is based on, House of Leaves, it's a book about a young man who finds a manuscript about a family's documenting, I can't talk tonight either, the details of their experiences in this strange house. And so, like, a 5-minute hallway is one of the songs, and it talks about how she keeps going down this hallway and it's never ending, and she can never get to the end of this hallway. So it's kind of like...
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare song. But when we would put this in when we would travel from Minnesota, when we lived in Minnesota, down to Kansas City, we would put this CD, and there were some other ones, but we always played Haunted, the whole CD. Mm-hmm. And my daughter, who was probably, I don't know, 13 and 14, 12, in that time period, in that age group.
Early teens.
We were just at a rock concert. We went and saw the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. That was another CD that we would play from beginning to end. And I go, hey, does this remind you of our trips driving down to Kansas City? And she goes, Haunted? She goes, that CD lives rent-free in my mind. And I'm like, I have never heard that phrase before, and I keep hearing it from people her age. That lives rent-free in my mind forever.
Because they all pay rent.
Because nobody's paying rent, yeah. But anyway, Haunted is a great CD. Check it out, by Poe, P-O-E.
Yeah, I like Poe.
Oh, and that came out in 2000. So that was just prior to 9/11, which, so it's a great album.
And my next one is from July of 2005. Sufjan Stevens had an album called Illinoise. Actually, it's called Come On and Feel the Illinoise.
Oh, yeah? Play on words.
Yeah. So Sufjan is a singer-songwriter. I think he's from Michigan. I'm not sure. But it's his 5th studio album, and it was one of the highest critically acclaimed albums of 2005. It was on like several Best of the Decade lists and Best of the Year list. It's an album it's about people and places and things and events that happened in Illinois. So there's he takes a lot of literature references from Saul Bellow and Carl Sandburg, and he focuses on historical themes and history and culture from the state. There's a song on there called John Wayne Gacy Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Because John Wayne Gacy was
serial
Chicago.
killer. Yeah. Dressed up as a clown.
There's the Kashmir Pulaski Day, Jacksonville. The first track on it is called Concerning the UFO Sighting Near Highland, Illinois. And then he has another song on there called The Man of Metropolis. Steals Our Hearts.
I've been to Metropolis.
Yeah, because that Metropolis statue's there.
Yeah, they have this. They have a 2-story Superman statue in Metropolis, Illinois. And if you're going down, is it 24 or?
I know I've went past it.
I can't. At 58 or 24, I can't remember. But anyway, just check it out. It's fun. And they have a little museum there too, a little Superman museum.
But he kind of wrote this song. There's 22 tracks on this album.
Wow, that's a lot.
And he asked like friends to give them him anecdotes of their experiences of being in Illinois or things that happened to them in Illinois.
Corn.
And then
that's my impression.
He also took some trips himself through the state to get inspiration for some of the songs. But he wrote an album before that called Michigan. And he made the joke that he was going to do 50 albums for every state.
Oh, yeah.
So an album for every state.
Yeah.
And it was actually a joke. He was just joking. But, he made the Illinois album after he did the Michigan album.
Yeah,
so,
that's funny.
But, Come On Feel the Illinoise. So it's, it's not Illinois, it's Illinois.
Yeah.
And it's by Sufjan Stevens. Check that out. It's a great album from July of 2005.
I love that. My next album is Green Day, American Idiot. Mm-hmm. I can totally relate to this album because it came out in 2004 when we re-elected George Bush. And this is like a post 9/11. It's like a scathing takedown. It's of American culture in the years following 9/11, criticizing the state of the U.S. In 2004 when we re-elected George W. Bush, W as they like to call him, W, nuclear. Anyway, it's an assessment of the. It's also assessment of the cable TV news after 9/11. I don't know about you, but I was alive after 9/11. I was an adult. I had experienced the whole day, and then afterward, watched the news and just like every day, I would spend the whole day either listening or watching the news. I was just obsessed with it to the point. There's like a South Park. I think it was after 9/11. There's a South Park where the mom is just like on the couch drooling because she has just been depressed as hell. And I'm like, oh my God, that was me after 9/11. I was just totally depressed. But it goes into how the news media kind of made everybody paranoid and stupid. Like people were doing like stupid things after 9/11.
The government did stupid things.
Well, the government did stupid things. I mean, got us into
we started a war with
a war. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. That, and we're not going to get into a political takedown on the whole 9/11 thing. So, no ugliness in the comments. Don't be ugly in the comments. So, songs to mention: American Idiot and Wake Me Up. Wake Me Up. I love Wake Me Up.
When September Comes.
When September Comes. Yeah. It's number 11 on the tracks, so by no coincidence is it number 11. And I think there was another song, Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Yeah. I used to have that as a ringtone on my phone.
Did they not do a Broadway play to
Yes, they made a Broadway play out of this album.
That's what I thought.
And it also won the Grammy Award that year in 2004 for Best Rock Album. And the whole album is superb. Like the whole album is great. It was a great and if you listen to Green Day before this album, you're like, what?
Right. And that was a very turnaround. That's what it is with a lot of these concept albums. They were like big turnarounds for these people's careers. A lot of them. I mean, going back and looking through a lot of these, you find that they were like a huge change in direction for these bands.
Yeah, so. I mean, they went from being like a really rough, punky, punk band to like this very streamlined, highly produced, very thought out album. It was incredible.
My next one is Aimee Mann's The Forgotten Arm, which was released in May of 2005. It was her 5th album, and it was produced by Joe Henry. It won the Grammy for Best Packaging. I was showing Kathy the packaging for it earlier.
It's a great
The
album
packaging
concept.
is amazing. It was by a guy named Owen Smith. He does all the illustrations of the story in it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of reads like a book when you look at the packaging in it.
Yeah.
And it's very well done.
It's done like a book, yeah.
Yeah, it's done like a book. But Aimee Mann is one of my favorite singer-songwriters. She's just so good with words and lyrics. And so basically the story is it's about 2 characters who run off with each other to escape their problems, but end up in more trouble than they either could imagine. The title is derived from a move in boxing where an arm is used to hit an opponent, causing them to forget about the other arm to deliver a harsher blow.
Oh, okay.
So that's what The Forgotten Arm is. It's basically a story about a boxer named John and his girlfriend, and they meet at his girlfriend's name is Caroline. I didn't write that down, but I just remembered that.
Okay. Okay.
The boxer named John and his girlfriend who meet at the state fair in Virginia, and they decide to run off together to forget their problems. But John has an alcohol problem as well as a problem keeping the camera steady.
Yeah, sorry.
So his alcohol problem comes to light, and he seeks treatment, and she tries to help him. But in the end, it's a happy ending. It's a happy story. So it does have a happy ending.
I'm sorry.
My favorite cuts from it are Dear John, Goodbye Caroline, Going Through the Motions, and I Can't Help You Anymore. Those are some of my favorite cuts from it.
Cool.
Great album. Aimee Mann's The Forgotten Arm. Oh, yeah, I said that already.
Yeah. I love all of her music and all of her albums.
She's one of my favorite singers.
She's a master at the lyric composition. So my next album I want to talk about, now, I'm not sure if I discovered them first or if you discovered them first, but they're the Decemberists, and the name of the album is Hazards of Love. It came out in 2009. It's like a folk rock concept album. Colin Millay is like the leader, main lyricist, songwriter, composer. He is brilliant. I love him so much.
He's a smart guy.
He really is. And he's just really smart about how he puts his lyrics together and the music. And all of his songs in this album, I had this in my minivan when I was driving to work, and I would put it on, and I listened to this like every day for like 3 months. I can't remember, but it was a long time. But it's a folk tale about a man who was raised by this mother, this forest queen character, and she would turn him into a fawn during the day to protect him from regular people. But he kind of fell in love with this lady named Margaret, and so he pretended like he was hurt, and she came along and she helped him fix his supposed broken leg. But then he turned into a guy, and he's like, "Hey, want to have a date? Want to hang out?
Want to fool around?
Want to fool around in the brambles in the forest?" So anyway, Margaret has her way with her, and she gets pregnant. Well, the parents find out, like, she's trying to hide that she's pregnant, and the parents are like, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" And she's not married, and so it was like a big no to have a pregnant daughter who wasn't married off, and so they marry her off to this rake guy who is not a nice guy. This guy kept getting his women pregnant and having all these kids,
and he
then
murdered the kids.
And then the wife would die because she wasn't there to take care of the kids, and then he would divest himself of his responsibility, as they put it in the song. But the rake is a great villain. The witch character, songs to actually you just need to listen to the whole CD, because it is a folk tale. It's like a folk tale that they've put together. But the rake song is really good. The Hazards of Love. and The Wanting Comes in Waves. The Wanting Comes in Waves, that's another song that makes me cry because they end up not being able to be together. Margaret and her Fawn. Yeah, Fawn.
The guy she's fond of.
The fondness of the guy that she can't be with.
She's fond of him.
I thought I'd written down his name, but I didn't. But anyway, William.
Yes, William.
William and Margaret.
I think you mentioned that.
Did I? Okay. Anyway, they can't be together, and so they jump in the river, which is this wild river, and drown so that they can be together in death.
So it's sort of a Romeo and Juliet kind of story.
It is very much like a Romeo and Juliet story. They couldn't be together because of their families, and so they commit suicide to be together.
Right.
Which, another suicide song. What is going on here? I have a lot of songs about suicide in these concept albums.
So my next one is the Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society. This album came out in 1968, September of 1968. It was the first one produced by Ray Davies, who is the leader of the Kinks, for those of you who might not know that. It's a really interesting album as far as sound goes. It really was not much of a rock album for them. It was because the Kinks were really the guys who invented heavy guitar. The power chord thing.
Yeah.
The Kinks were like the first to really use power chords, and
they were
rock
part of that
music.
British invasion too.
Yeah. But anyway, it wasn't really that kind of style. It had a lot of musical influences, were like music hall style, folk, blues, calypso. So a lot of different styles were in the album. But the album was about a collection of songs, sort of as society was being taken over by all the cultural influences of the U.S. and into the U.K.
Yeah.
And it was sort of him pushing back on that and saying, let's remember what things were like, before we had all these influences from the U.S. coming in.
Oh, okay.
And so it was sort of his pushback on America and trying to preserve English society.
Oh, okay.
It was the last album of the Kinks that was the original lineup of the Kinks, and it was recorded in London. So let's see if I have anything else.
It was 1968.
68. It was recorded in September of 68 and released in November of 68. Let's see what else. It's a collection of character studies. Some of those songs are "Do You Remember Walter?" Another song is called Picture Book. A song we talked about a couple of weeks ago on our animal one was Phenomenal Cat, which is another fun song. Another great song is Sitting by the Riverside. A lot of really nice songs by the Kinks.
Yeah. More folky
kind of
storytelling.
Storytelling and just more nostalgic kind of songs. But it was a very big departure for them musically than what they had done in the past. So the Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society is the name of the album. Actually.
Nice.
So
the next album I'm going to talk about is another British artist, Kate Bush, who is to rock opera theatrical as Alice Cooper is in the male version. She'd be the female version of the rock opera. Kate Bush did an album called Hounds of Love in 1985 and has had a resurgence in popularity because of the
Running Up That Hill.
Running Up That Hill, which was on this album because of Stranger Things. A whole new generation of kids have discovered Kate Bush. It was like number one. It was so funny. It was like Kate Bush, and there was another group from the 80s that was high up in the chart. It's like, did we have a time warp and go back in time to 1985?
Yeah.
It was
the music today is not that good.
Yeah, well, it's like they wish they were as good as the music from the 80s. But basically, it has the two sides of the album. I have it on vinyl, actually. It's a great album. The first side is about being afraid to fall in love and relationships, and the Hounds of Love. It's about like how you're always hounded, by these relationships and if you fall in love, you don't want to get hurt, getting hurt and stuff like that. Side 2, which has like and Dream of Sheep, which we talked about in our last a couple weeks ago. That song in Dream of Sheep is about the little light that she talks about in that song. It's the blinking light on her flotation device vest from an airplane crash.
Ooh.
So she's in ice water. She's in freezing water after a plane crash. And
Did that really happen?
No, she wasn't in a plane crash.
Okay, good.
No. She's still alive. Kate Bush is still alive. She hasn't been replaced with a clone.
I thought maybe she
I think it's a concept album, Kathy. It's a concept.
Okay, it's a concept.
But anyway, so that second side, I believe, after listening to it again, because I love that album. I've listened to it many times over the years, but I actually listened to it this time, and it starts out with a Dream of Sheep. Basically, she just wants to fall into a dream and count sheep so that she doesn't have to be where she's at, so she can be transported someplace else. And then it goes into this the Ice Queen song where she's skating on ice because she's drowning in this ice water.
Is that the one that has Waking the Witch on it?
Yes.
Okay.
And so and then she kind of goes through a time where she's not like anywhere, and kind of a rebirth. Limbo. Yeah, she kind of goes into limbo, and then is reborn on the Hello, and the anyway. So it's a great album, and it really kind of, the music, the composition of the songs, and is just perfect on that album. It's a great album.
My next one is another one that kind of talks about preserving the past. Rosanne Cash did a great album in 2014 called The River and the Thread.
Oh, okay.
Rosanne Cash is one of my favorite singer-songwriters. She's a brilliant lyricist. Writes great songs. But this album was written by her and her husband, John Leventhal. It's critically acclaimed. It won 3 Grammy Awards for Best Americana Album, for Best Roots Song, and Best Roots Performance. It's the geographic perspective of the South through her lens of personal experience and general observational fact. While she was working on this album was when she was trying to do the preservation of her father's boyhood home. Her father, if you don't know, is Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
So it filled her with a lot of emotions and thoughts of the South. And so it's a really powerful, beautiful album. One of my favorite tracks is a song called A Feather Is Not a Bird. Great song. There's another song on there called Edda's Tune, which is about one of the women who was in Johnny Cash's band and was a good friend of the family.
Oh, okay.
So it's a song about her. 50,000 Watts is about radio stations that existed in the South, and like AM radio stations of that time. And then one of the final tracks on it's called The Long Way Home. Another good song about sort of about finding her dad and their relationship. So it's a really great album. Rosanne Cash, The River and the Thread. Check it out.
Cool. I love Rosanne Cash.
Yep.
So my final album I'm going to talk about is Midnights by Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is like her own economy. Like, if you're having trouble in your town, have Taylor Swift come and she will perk it up. She's
in Kansas City this weekend.
Right. She is. That's right. They were like sending out bulletins on, okay, y'all, Taylor's in town and this is how it's going down. Yeah. Maybe that's why there's been so many freaking crashes on the highway.
Probably people listen to Taylor Swift songs.
I'm like, I have been in traffic jams all weekend since I've been here since Thursday. Anyway, so Midnights is about the overall concept of 13 tracks is based on 13 sleepless, restless nights that she had after some kind of a breakup in a relationship.
A breakup? Taylor Swift breaking up with a boy? No.
I can't imagine.
No, that never happens.
That's some of her best work has come from breaking up with her boyfriends.
I think like 90% of it has.
Well, actually, all the songs are about self-examination, insincerity, regret, thankfulness, the reflections that might keep a person up at night, contemplating their past, present, and future, and all that is in between. Mm-hmm. The only thing about Taylor Swift, and this is just my opinion, and hey, you Swifties out there, don't hate me. I do love her music. I love her song Anti-Hero.
She's got some great songs.
Now on this, I listened to this album from beginning to end. Now, in my opinion, some of the songs sound a lot alike. Like she has this very distinctive cadence on how she has a lot of words and language and lyrics. And I know you're kind of a lyric hound, and she does have some really great lyrics. But she paints
really good pictures with her songs.
She does. She paints a canvas with her music. But I feel like the sound or the music part of her songs are very similar, and they are, and they kind of just like.
As someone who's taught several of her songs.
That's right.
There's a lot of the same chord progressions throughout her songs.
Yeah.
She uses a lot of the same chord progressions.
Yeah.
So they are very similar sometimes musically.
Yeah, I mean, I like Lavender. I think it's Lavender Haze on that one, and then Anti-Hero. I love the video that she did to that song Anti-Hero.
I'm teaching one of my students that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a great song. So
my last one is from September 27th of 2009. Sturgill Simpson put out the album called Sound and Fury. And I think of this as a concept. When I listen to this album, I feel it's a concept album just because every song segues into the next. But he actually made a Netflix film on this done through anime.
Oh, cool.
With an anime director. But it's a film of dystopian future done in anime. And it was nominated. Sturgill Simpson, for those who know Sturgill Simpson, he's a country artist. But he was nominated for Best Rock Album with this album. Oh. So he's the first artist in history to be nominated for both country and rock albums.
Oh, wow.
For Grammys.
That's cool.
It took him 2 weeks to record it with his band while they were on hiatus in Michigan. And like I said, every song kind of segues into the next. And it's really a collection of like really kind of gnarly, angry, space-agey kind of sounding songs with his southern style voice. Oh. So it's a really kind of a dichotomy between country and rock kind of clashing and just kind of making this furious sound.
Yeah.
And so it's a really, really great album. And he took the title from a Shakespeare play, Sound and the Fury is the title of the album.
Nice.
My favorite songs from it are Remember to Breathe, Sing Along, Best Clockmaker on Mars, and Last Man Standing. This is like one of my favorite albums that has come out in the last 10 years.
Nice.
When I first heard this album, I was just blown away by it. I still, to this day, when I put it on, I can't take it off. I just have to listen to it over and over
Yeah.
again. It's just so good. I love the intensity. There's so much intensity.
Nice.
And heart in this album. So if you feel like angry or something, it's a great album to put on to get some frustrations out.
That and Linkin Park. Linkin Park is my angry album that I like to put on and sing to.
But Sturgill Simpson, Sound and Fury, great album.
Nice.
Well, we've went way over our normal time.
Yes.
We usually try to do 20 to 30 minutes, and we've went almost an hour talking about concept albums.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to say about them.
And we have not even touched on even a drop of how many there are out there. These are just some that we have come across that we really like over the years. So if you have some that you like as well, put those in the comments because we'd love to hear what you like
down below.
And I know we skipped over people like Pink Floyd and people who are known for their concept albums.
We had like 5 pages of different concept albums.
And we just kind of narrowed it down to 10 that we both wanted to talk about.
And I wanted to talk about albums that maybe people hadn't really talked
about.
Yeah, like Consequences, yeah. But please like and share this video with your friends. Let people know that we're out here. Give us a thumbs up underneath our video to elevate us in the algorithm. And then
That's a word.
Algorithm, yes. We will curate a playlist to go with this podcast on Spotify, so you can check that out. And that's really about all we have for today. We probably should cut it short here, so to speak. So with that being said, this is Kathy.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Kathy.
And we are
The KC Cafe Radio Podcast.
Thank you again for watching and listening.
Have a great night.